today's world, data is the new gold. Data scientists unlock insights from raw information. They use statistical methods to analyze trends. Data analysts convert data into visual stories. By creating dashboards, they help organizations make informed decisions. Machine learning models can predict future outcomes. They identify patterns that aren't visible to the naked eye. Data cleaning ensures accuracy and analysis. Collaboration across departments enhances data insights. They utilize programming languages like Python and R for analysis. Cloud computing resources expand their capabilities. With big data, they tackle complex challenges across industries. Ethics in data science ensures responsible use of information. The future of data science looks bright with endless possibilities.
Hello, you are welcome to class. My name is Jude, your anchor. I'd like to thank you for having the patience to be in the class as we have entered the 5 of our learning curve in Python called machine learning. We have been able to do a lot of things. I intentionally, deliberately decide to move at this pace so that you can be able to watch the videos that we have done, repeat them, practice, make your mistake and improve, and get muscle memory with respect to the functions, the expectations of machine learning vis-a-vis Python. So today we are going to look at Python basics. After today's class, we are going to take one more class for the basics in Python. But most of this thing we are doing is we're taking the core, which you can use to build as extensive as Python itself is a topic that only Python you can do for 2-3 years in a university, let alone machine learning. So because our curve is not that stretched, it's a bit steep, so we learn much under a few given period for you to get the basics. So the Python basics, we are trying to look at general information. Want to learn everything we need to know with respect to knowing what Python is all about and continue to work on it. So the first thing we should know about general information. It's possible we have touched 1 or 2 things before. Please, it's good we touch them and retouch them so that it can stick. You know how to manipulate this and to run it so that the memory, the system will interpret it as such. So we're talking about general information. One thing you should understand in Python is about white space. Understand that white space matters a lot. White space matters a lot in Python. So when we talk about white space, we're talking about the space we use when we are running or we are trying to code. The space that we leave behind is very, very important. Now, if I am typing, for instance, I'll type Mr. Jude. Now, just observe what I'm doing. This space here before the Mr. Jude is regarded to as white space. White space. Even as I'm typing Mr. Jude and Mr. Jude need to be together, for instance, and I give it a space, it is also very, very important in Python. It can lead to a great confusion and great headache if you are not careful. So, white space is important, and it is very, very good that you know that where white space is expected, you put. Where white space is not expected, you avoid. That is all we want to say here. So, this particular code, line of code, does not have any joining. And moreover, you can see this, my hyphen, claim it. When you do another one, you see this is underscore. Most time we use underscore, and they have different interpretation. If you go back to our last note, there were some things I talked about with respect to this. So now, that is one thing you should have at the back of your mind. I claim this. The next thing you should know is indentation. Ident, where needed. Ident where needed. Now the question is, what is indentation? What is indentation? So you should ident where needed. So indentation is talk about this. Let me go again to Mr. Jude. Mr. Jude, for instance, and I want to continue something about Mr. Jude. I put this double portion and I can click enter. You see where it started. Okay, let me go back and claim it again, and I've just written Mr. Jude. I just enter to start again. Do you see where the mark is starting from? The mark is starting from the starting line of where Mr. Jude started from. But when I put an indentation and I click on it, it gives a different space for me to work with. That is indentation. It's another rule that you observe in Python, because if you don't observe it, it will give you a lot of headache. So you do that. So you ident where it's needed. It's not everything we do that we ident. There's some things, especially when we are defining a function and defining a class, we use indentation so that you see that, like I was talking about global variable and local variable. When you are declaring local variable, it is only within the space of what you are working at that particular point in time that your local variable has the potency of giving you desired result. Now, global variable we apply to any other thing you are doing, even if not in that line of code. In several lines, the global variable still has some important influence, but global variable will come and end there. So when we are declaring local variable, we always make sure we use indentation. So I hope that is clear. So the next thing you should be able to have at the back of your mind is how we can be able to put up a conditional statement. For instance, conditional statement. You know, we have done that in Excel. We also did that in, I don't know if I can remember if I did that in Tableau and Power BI, but I know Excel is very good in conditional. Yes, we did it also in Tableau when we are trying to put some conditions, even in Power BI. So Python 2 is also part of what takes up these important statements. So when you come to conditional statements, conditional statement, For instance, we can also, apart from using markdown, you can also use comment. For instance, you put up your comment, so the system will see it as not as a code. So when you run it, for instance, it will just be there, so you know that it's also something that has not gone through the system. For instance, you say if is sunny, if is sunny, put indentation. Let me write it very well, sorry. If it's sunny, if it's sunny, for instance, that's a condition. It has to print what I want to print. Remember, anytime you are writing a text, always remember to put up inverted comma, whether double or single. So you write it's sunny. You are not trying to set up a sentence. And now, peradventure, you have an elif. That means we have a condition where the temperature is 90 or is less than 90 or less than equal to temp, which is temperature, which is less than 100, and both is greater than 80, for instance. When you're setting up a condition, under 80, then what are you saying? You say print that means you're talking about taking a bath, you have to print bath is hot and full. You are given the first condition, then you see going with elif. Elif not, print C job is the same thing as and here or USR is the same thing as admin redent. Let's say print what? Print match if not QA or admin. Then now print your last, which is S print no match. Job is plus job valid line 1 if it's sunny. Line 1 if it's sunny. If it's sunny, valid substance. Let's see if we write if sunny. That's what I'm gonna see. Cell in 36 line 5. If not, C job line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As if job invalid sentence job if let me see in job, so I can see line 37 line 1 if sunny, then sunny is not defined, so I need to define sunny. So need to define sunny. This is exactly how we use conditional sentence. Don't mind if the answer is not correct, but what I want us to see here is the idea. We have to define what sunny is. Then we'll now begin to run around to get one or two things. But just digest what you are seeing for now. We'll still be going back to it. It's part of what you can see in conditional formatting. So last time we talked about dictionary, and dictionary we are talking about key value. So the key value is always important when you are talking about dictionary. So we don't need to go to dictionary again. We have talked about maybe number calculation. Let's comment this. You want to comment all, you can highlight it and do shift, go to where there's a question mark in your laptop, just click on it, Ctrl C, Ctrl Z, bring it back. Just click on Ctrl question mark. It will comment everything so that it will not disturb our line of code. So you run it again, so it will remain there. We know that it's something that can be worked on later to make correction, but this is how you can keep your work neat in Python work. So we can continue our work. So here we'll go to numbers, number calculation, and for number calculation, I will say total. For instance, let's say total is equals to 3 to the power of 3, and you run it. The answer is stored in memory. So if you now say total and run, it will now give you the output. So alternatively, we can come here and okay, let's do another one. We can say total is equal to 5 plus 2 raised to power 3, and you come down and you say total. Let's see what it will give us first. So it's giving us 9. Is 9 correct answer? Okay. Do you know why this 9 came up? Look at the total I wrote here. It was not written well. So it's giving me the answer for this total. There's something I wanted to see first there. Why I put it? Let us see. There's something I want to do there. Now this new total now has overridden this total. So what the memory is telling you now, anytime you ask total now, it will forget about this. It will giving you this. So this is the answer for this. Now we can go again and say cost. Excuse me. Sorry. We can say cost is equal to 1.50, for instance, plus 3.75. And you come down and say costs. Run it. Now to give you the cost. When you don't call it out, it will put to memory. The answer is there, but it's not going to give it out. So we go again to tuple. Remember what we talked about in tuple. Say tuple are not mutable. You cannot improve on it. It's normally used to save work. So when you have tuple, your work cannot be, you cannot actually begin to manipulate it anyhow. So it has its own function, though it looks primitive, unlike list that can be improved and updated. You can do that with tuple. And then so you say that tuple are, they are just like tuple are like list. Remember list? Like lists. And one thing that is particular about them is that they cannot be changed. That's why I say they are not mutable. They cannot be changed. And two, how they come with this unlike list that come with block bracket. This one's come with a circular form of bracket. So if we have something like this one will go to code and change it to markdown so that you won't disturb our work. Say tuple 1 and we start say 1 2 3 A Z. This is an example of a tuple. Now, when you go to, you want to see if you can call up a tuple, you say tuple 1 tuple 1. What are you doing to tuple 1? You want to call up item 3. You want to call up item 3 in tuple 1. Remember what you say, that indexing starts from 0 and moves from left to right. So this is number 1 is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and you run it. Tuple 1 invalid syntax. So what do we do? We have to redo the work and correct it. Test space. Let's see. Okay. Tuple. Let's remove. Run it again and see. Now it doesn't want tuple 1, so you write it well. So tuple, it can be any name. I may not call it name. I can also change the name. Maybe I can change this name and write Uju, for instance. It doesn't matter what you wrote there, and you write Uju again here. As long as that is Uju and you run it, what we know from, because of this sign here, we know that it's a tuple. So when you run it, it will still give you the answer as A. So that is what you should know about tuple. Then for list, so for list, for instance, we know that list is a kind of numbers in a straight line, one dimensional. When they become more than 1, the name changes. We'll come to see that in time. So have that at your mind as we continue to make progress. So for list, we can have a lot of, for instance, you say the scores of a particular candidate, and now this is, you see the rectangular, this thing defines a list, and you are putting up the score. You have A as a score, you put your comma, put up your comma, your inverted comma. We have C. This is the score of somebody that you are looking at, and the person scored 90, and the person scored 75, and the person scored C. So this is the what you call what the person has scored. So now if I decided to check some things based on the index, first of all, I may decide to go down here and just say, okay, give me scores Always make sure that whatever you write here is the same here. And to be on the safe side, it's better you copy and paste so that you don't make mistake. So now we're looking at score at index 0. We also want to look at scores at index 1 slice to 3. All this I'll explain. I want to look at scores. I want to count. And anytime you want to count, you see now. Let's run this and see first whether we'll throw up an error. So what is giving me is the last answer. So let me do some commenting so that we can see different form of answer. So I can comment the first two. So I just want to see my scores on index 0. Remember, index 0 is A. So when I run it, it will give me A. Okay. Now that I've gotten this, I can comment on this, and now remove the comment of the last one. Now I want to see these scores for slice between 1 and 3 and run it. So it is giving me C. This is 0, C is on 1, and 2, 0, 1, 3. So it's cutting the third one out. It's only showing you between 1 and 2. That's what it's doing here. Is slicing. Slicing is cutting off. So it will start from 1 and end at this particular point. But what will show you is the first two. That last one, it doesn't show it. We'll have two kind of slicing. We're going to see it, lock and a-lock. We use that to get our slicing. So I put back the indentation and go to the last one. That is the further score that you saw initially. Score of can C. So the lane. So when you run it, it will show you 2 dot count. So you are counting and C. So there are only 2 within that period to be from the starting point to the next point. So we can add more things to it. We can say, okay, can you give us want to append? Remember what to say append is? Append is to add scores, and when you're adding, you use the append function. And what you're adding is you want to add 100. Remember, there's no 100 in this work. So when you append and you run it, it will not give you any answer. Now you come down now and you now put scores and run again. You see that 100 has been added at the end of our work. That is how it is there. So now I've not finished, so I can remove this score and continue to look. I can also pop. So I can say scores dot pop and close this so that pop and I'll run it and see what is going to be media. So now this pop is removing this C. Our problem is that I didn't take care of this append that I added here, because if I come again and I write scores and run, it will give me A, C, 1975C. So this append that he added here, he did not actually add it here. That is what we have just seen. Okay, so we continue to look at other terminals. We talked about Python and the OOPS, the object oriented concepts in Python. When you open a lot of literature, it will be telling you that Python operates as an open-ended, among other things, an object-oriented programming language. So what actually is object-oriented programming language? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. So the first thing you should know is that number one is that Python is a multi-paradigm programming language. Why do we say that it's a multi-programming language? Because the reason is that it supports different programming approaches. It supports different programming approaches. A lot of, you can see Python active in web design. You see Python active in data analysis. You see Python in web developer utilization. You can see Python in machine learning. And it is that vast that the language has become almost a universal kind of language that every programmer, every data analyst, every data scientist uses. So that is why I say it is multi-paradigm programming language. So another important thing you should know about it is that those approaches we are talking about, it is used to solve problems by creating objects. So it is used to solve problems by or through the creation, by creating objects. Now you now ask a question again, what is objects? But this objects you are creating is what we now refer to as so the object is create. The object it creates, gives it the ability to do a lot of things. Hence, we call it the object oriented programming. Or object-oriented programming language, which is known as OOP, Object-Oriented Programming System. So, it's very, very important that we have that, we know that. It makes things easy. And it has two important characteristics. So OOP has two important characteristics, which is character, what it is known, characteristics, the things it is known. One of them is what? The attribute. You say A is attribute, and the other one is which is B, is the behavior. The behavior. So when we want to understand this further, we see why it's giving error. I didn't define it, so you see it as a code, so it will give me error. So when I come back here, I change it, I bring it back to MVC convert, and run it again. It will leave it the way it is. Okay, so when we want to say, for example, when we want to give example, for instance, and we say that a parrot is an object. We're giving an example, remember, because as it has the following properties. Remember, we want to understand what we mean by attribute. So now we're saying that a parrot is an object. Why is a parrot an object? A parrot can be seen with some definite features, and those features will include name. The parrot has a name. Age. The parrot has an age. The parrot has a color. We can go on, and all of them can be seen as attributes. What you can attribute it to. So what you can attribute it to is an example. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is the parrot sings. It has a singing ability. The parrot dances. It has a dancing capability. So when we look at it, dancing. So even the parrot can talk. Talking ability. So we see that as what? The behavior of the said parrot. So having this at the back of our mind, it helps us to understand clearly what we mean by object-oriented behavior of a programming language vis-a-vis Python, or that were underused. So the subject or the concept The concept of OOP in Python focuses on creating reasonable code. Of course, you should also know what a code is. So a code is a given kind of signal that stands to be interpreted and useful for analysis, manipulation, and other form of important utilization. So this concept we have said is very, very important. The other things you also need to know, you need to know about class. We need to know about, we're even going to go to things like types of errors that will prop up while you run Python code, the arguments that comes up, how you understand them. So let's just look at the class. Let's look at the class in Python and try to define it. Anytime you see me write and you see a green color, it means those things are defined. They are the ones that have already been given that you cannot use anyhow in your work. The system will not allow you to work with it. So we want to define a class. Say a class is a behavior, or rather say it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for the object. So the object we have been talking about has a direction, a pathway. So we can think of class as a sketch of parrot with labels. So parrot that have been drawn and it is labeled. You see that at the end. So in that you see that it contains all details about the name, about the color, about the size, etc. as much as you desire to see. So it is known as a class. So I'm taking my time to take this in one after the other. When you come into practical use, you see where the importance comes up. So if you want to give an example now, let's say for instance, we now define a class, and the class is parrot. We can now put up our pass. So we're able to use that to define what we are doing. So if we have done this, we can go ahead to define what we have done. Consider here class, the keyword here you're seeing for the class, define an empty class, which is parrot, from class so from class we can now construct instances. That means we are going to instantiate. Okay. So we can go ahead to say, for instance, sorry, take this one back. I can say that n instance is a specific object created from a particular class. Okay. Next thing you need to know, remember we are still looking at the basics, Python basics. So we're touching all this. After we have done touching the basics, we will now go to look at some libraries, after which we will now go to machine learning proper. Then I'll start another fresh teaching with respect to machine learning. Now, as we are running on the machine learning, we'll bring in some attributes, some important needs that we use in our work. Because as I said, data science is very broad. Machine learning and Python are also broad. We can't finish all of them. So we'll now look at object. So what is an object? So an object, this object, of course, is an instance. So we're getting used to the terminology, is an instantiation of a class. It's an instantiation of a class. So when a class is defined, only the description for the class object is defined. Therefore, no memory or storage is allocated. So what it's saying is that when a class is defined, for instance, an object is an instance, is an instantiation of a class, meaning that it comes from the class. And you say that the class is a blueprint for the object. So the object, and we will give an example of an object as a parrot. And the parrot has two characteristics. One, it has attributes, what you can see, physical description, and now it has behavior, what it does. So that is what we are trying to establish here. So you say when a class is defined, only the description for the class object is defined. The description, that means the attribute is described. So memory or storage is not so no memory or storage is allocated. So how do we do that? You come, for instance, and you give an example. Let's use, let's say, example, they will now come and say the object obj is equal to parrot. This is an example of what we are saying. So you see you have an empty space here, but we have already made some definition there. So the object is parrot. If you run it, it will to give us some parrot is not defined. Anytime a work is not defined, it will throw up error in this manner. So when you come, you don't want to see this, just come up here and change it to anything markdown or raw convert. So you just keep it simple for you as you are doing your work. The object now is not to run a code, just to understand what you are doing. So see here, the object is an object of class parrot. That's what we're saying, and that's what we have done. That the object is an object of class parrot. So if, for instance, suppose we have details of parrot, now we are going to show how to build the class and object of parrots. So we can access the class attribute, that is the physical attribute, using class species. So these are step by step of how to understand these terminologies. Now when we come to the practical use, you see it in actualization. So we have inheritance amongst others. So we stop at this position for now, so that once we start to practice, they will naturally be added into our work. So I'd like to look at Python functions. Python functions. So what is a function? So we can define it. definition of a function, we can say that a function is a block of codes only runs when is called. So that's one. So in Python, a function is defined using the def keyword. So what we're saying here is that, for definition, that a function is a block of code and it only runs when it's called. So function just, you have to call the function up for it to run. So in Python, the function is defined using the def. So the def keyword helps us to define a function. And we can give an example. Let's just put an indentation so that you can bring our list closer. We'll not say use def. I'm not trying to call a function. Say my underscore function. Now this is how you are calling up a function. Then you now say print hello. That's an example. So let's see if we close this and see if we can run this def my function. Indentation error, unexpected ident. So what it says is that the indentation was not done very well. So for now, let's take cognizance of the things we need to note. Our major take now is not on the running of the function, is how it's taking shape is what we are looking at. So when we start to call the function, we'll put them properly and we arrange them. So there are arguments in function. Functions. So the question is that what is argument? Now, when you are trying to define a class or any other thing, there's some specific things you need to put into your work. Those things are what we call argument. So let's say an argument, they are specified after the function for the function name inside the parentheses. So you can see this is a function. This is a parenthesis after it. So arguments are always inserted inside these parentheses. Whatever is required, the argument is there. We'll do that inside. So what I say is that you can add as many arguments as you wish. All separate them is comma. So you can add as many arguments as you wish. All to separate them is comma. And let's look at example of how those arguments are given. Let's put this for our working sake. You say def my function. So you say f name. That's name. For instance, then you now say print maybe this f name is together, print f name plus ref new, for instance. So this is, for instance, what you expect to do when you define the function and what you call up. You can have other things like in the argument. You can have, for instance, my function, and you say Emi, for instance, for Emilia as a name, or you can even say my function. It can be Victor. Can have my function and it can be Jude. It will all come out by that definition. Oh. So we'll close this particular class in this manner. Then in the next class, I will try to look into some basic advanced expectation for Python. We'll take time to look at data frame. Remember I stated that list is just like a series in bracket. Data frame is a list that is more than one dimension. We'll look at it. We'll look at our NumPy. We'll look at Matplotlib. Matplotlib, I'm going to dedicate one full class for it. Then we'll look at other aspects that you may need before we go into machine learning. So please digest this and continue to raise questions so that we can continue to look at it and make improve. Please don't forget to visit Y3 School, that is the home for data scientists, you see some things that are also beneficial to you, so that as you are teaching, you are adding to the one you have gotten there, your capabilities start to grow before we go to machine learning. So do have a lovely day. Thank you and bye bye.